We are on Facebook. So good morning, everyone, live on Facebook. Welcome, panelists. Welcome. We've got some attendees as well. So quite exciting this morning. Awkward or what, this one? We're going to talk about all the awkward situations you've ever had. So if you're watching and you're on Facebook somewhere, please could you tell us what awkward situations you've had, please? I'm very interested. Very interested. I'm trying to make my screen bigger. Just 2 seconds. Full screen. There we go. Okay, who's first? Somebody. Go on, Terry. You must have had some awkwards. Or is it just everyone feels awkward with you? What awkward situations have you had? Keith's been a bit awkward because he is obviously, you know, got more interesting things to do. Neil, awkward situations, what have you had? None.
Sure, can't think.
Yes, you have, liar.
Right, I can start you off because I spoke about mine.
Danny's got his hand up.
Ah, Danny, come on, Danny. Give us an awkward. Gary, would you mind muting just until you're going to speak? Is that all right?
Yep.
Danny, go for it.
It's not really too much of an awkward moment. It's just when you've got good rapport and you need the loo in the middle of a 2-hour lesson, you need the loo. So basically you ask your student, if you don't mind, can I use the nearest loo? And they just say, yeah, of course you can, Dan. And we drive to the nearest supermarket or whatever, and vice versa. I've had it the other way around where I've said to students, if you need a toilet, just let me know. So it's not too awkward a moment. So if you've got good rapport, then I say it's not really that awkward. That's the only one I can think of at the moment.
Right.
Does that help to get the ball going?
It does. Thank you, Danny. I wish my one had asked me that. I know Ian's got a good one, but mine was exactly what you said, Danny, except, well, I don't think she knew that she really needed to go that badly, to be honest. We went round a corner and she went up a little bit of a bank. It's a little bit of a ooh kind of moment, you know, she just turned left, overcooked it. There was a little bit of a deposit. She left a bit of a deposit. But it was really awkward when I walked around the car and tried to get in because she was still there. And I had that like 2-second moment to think, shall I sit on it or say something? It was very awkward. Anyway, that was a horrible one. Ian's got a juicy one.
Darren, what did you do? Did you sit and not say something? Can't leave us hanging on.
Because this was a long time ago, this was early on. I think now I would have had such good rapport. I could have said, oh, I didn't know it scared you that much. Is it all right if I get a plastic bag out and I'll sit on that? Luckily I didn't have electric seats, otherwise it would have been a bit of a worry. But I didn't have very good rapport. It was very much, you know, instructor led. So I I sat on one kind of cheek. I just sat very lopsided. It's very difficult to drive that way. But no, I didn't say anything. If her rapport was better with me, if she felt more relaxed with me, should she have felt? And that's really interesting to me. Why wasn't she able to say, oops, that scared me a little bit too much, Fiona. Sorry. So, yeah, that was just awkward. Who's taking notes? I think Neil might be. Yeah, see, we didn't even ask about it. So it was very interesting. Unfortunately, the rapport wasn't there.
I just help Ian with his notes. So I can just help Neil with his notes.
Yeah.
So first note, Neil, Fiona sat in we.
I didn't. I perched on it. I perched on it. I buttocked on it. There was none of that. Sammy, go for it. Do stop me talking.
Well, whilst we are on this subject, one little awkward moment was when this young lad I had wanted to go for a wee. So pulled over, he got out of the car, stood there in broad daylight, I could see everything, had this wee, and then I'm thinking he's got it on his hands. Then it gets in the car and I'm just about to get a disinfectant wipe out my dashboard. This is before COVID regulations and everything. And it just went like that. And I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to. Yeah, Lisa says in the chat, private chat, you. Yeah, exactly my thoughts. You know, I thought I don't want to like make him feel awkward, but then I'm feeling awkward. And you know, I think it's difficult, isn't it, to manage that situation? You don't want to offend and upset anybody, but because you've got to keep that professional boundary. But it's what do you say when somebody does something like that? So I just got my little wipe out and I said, would you like to wipe your hands? And it just said, oh no, I've wiped it on my sleeve towel. And that was the end of that.
At least urine, when it comes out, is fresh.
Go on, Teresa.
And it's sterile at that moment. Yes, Teresa.
I had, well, maybe my filter's not as good as some. I wasn't as held back, but I had a young man who, I have to say, was slightly irritating anyway, but got in my car with obviously a stinking cold and then proceeded to sneeze and snot everywhere and then put his hands all over the steering wheel. And I just went, what do you think you're doing? And he was just like, it was just revolting. And I just gave him a packet of tissues and he took one out and then tried to give me the packet back. And I said, no, you can keep that. I said, and can you do me a favour and not snot all over my car again? So I said, if you need to blow your nose, like, tell me, I can deal with that. But it was just like, I was a little bit more forthright with him because I felt that was crossing a boundary. But obviously you might not know if they're weeing all over your seat. So
I didn't know till I was getting in.
Bit different. But snot is a bit more obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, Terry.
Please change the subject.
I was told that he'd done it. It was the old, oops, we've gone down the wrong road. We have to turn around. It's a dead end. Oops. And he was in the middle of turning around and he started jumping in his seat. I said, are you all right? He said, I might need the toilet. I said, okay, we can go somewhere if you want. And he said, it's too late.
Was it liquid or solid?
Liquid. And at the end, he said, I'm really sorry. And I, being polite, don't worry, it's no problem. In my head, I'm going, you're 17. You should know when to go to the toilet now. And he got out and there was a little damp, not too much, a little damp strip. But yeah, I knew. I keep wipes in the car anyway. So I was vigorously, because he lived on the main road, so I had to park on the little side road. So I wasn't like you, Fiona. I didn't need to stand there while he went inside and hope he wasn't watching. But he went around the corner with wipes and just as I was doing it.
Thank you, Terry. Linda.
Just talking about toilets, I mean, it's just toilet stuff, but I had a really awkward moment when I was about 40 minutes into an hour's lesson and I got an IBS attack.
No.
Yeah.
The International Boat Service attacked you?
Yeah.
those soldiers are really good. You must surprised you're not dead.
And I was just sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, I've only got another 20 minutes. It'll be fine. I'll be able to get to Asda. And I was waiting at some traffic lights, really literally coming to her house about 10 minutes away. And she looked at me and she said, are you all right? And I went, no. And I had to go in her house and go to the toilet.
Yeah.
We'll never ever. I mean, it was just awful. I just said, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to. There's no feedback at the end. I said, I'm sorry. I just got to go. So she ran, and I couldn't run.
Yeah.
I was very gingerly behind her.
Clench and squeeze, clench and squeeze. Oh my!
No! Quick! We just got to go.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you.
I just couldn't move.
Yeah, I mean, as a driving instructor,
Orcs.
any awkward, irritated bowel is just not really. It's just not really on, is it?
It was awful.
I thought you said you didn't have any awkward situations.
No, well, it's just these things start making me think about things. Don't it?
Linda, were you walking like a penguin?
Oh, definitely. About to shit yourself.
Other instances are available. We're affected by that comment from our lovely Linda. May I? Isn't it? So,
Okay, now, sorry.
so we can't do Ian's awkward yet because that one's just really funny. But there's loads of awkwards. There are loads of awkwards. Can I start off the ball rolling on the other kind of awkward? As in, not this, the bladder and bowel one.
Please move on. Yes, do please.
When someone gets in the car and they just reek of alcohol and you just know it, you just know that it's recent. Yeah. Danny. And then Gary.
I just say something, Danny, your dog's gone. You haven't got to stroke it anymore.
Oh. Where's he gone? Oh, he's over there. Yeah, I had one many years ago, actually. I turned up at a lad's house and he got into my car and he absolutely intoxicated me with alcohol. And I got a good rapport with him. And I said to him, say Steve, or that wasn't his name, but I said, Steve, I had a good night last night. He goes, yeah, I was out with my mates and one thing led after the other. And he said, yeah, I got steaming. I said, yeah, right. I said, I'm afraid I can still smell the alcohol on you. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, to be honest, you're nearly knocking me out with it. I said, I'm really sorry, but I really can't conduct this lesson today. I said, I can smell it too much. You must be still over the limit. And he was okay about it. And he said, all right, then. He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah. I was drinking till 1 o'clock in the morning. This is during the week. And he said, yeah, just got some with mates and it ended up being a very good night. And I said, I'm afraid I'll have to cancel the lesson. And sadly, I'll still have to charge. And he was fine about it. But he knew deep down he did push his luck. But he was quite happy to take the lesson if I hadn't said anything. So just a friendly chat, and it never happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awkward.
It does. Well,
It's how you handle it.
it can be. It depends on the reaction. It's the reaction that we're worried about. And that's the problem with all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Danny.
A bad reaction from it, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. Gary.
Yeah, very, very similar story. Quite a few years ago, probably about 10, 15 years ago now, it was a boiling hot day. And I pulled up at a young lady's house, and it was one of those houses where you could have access from the side as well. And as he came out of his garden, it was in the afternoon, and as he came out of his garden, he was actually holding a bottle of Budweiser. And I could see him passing the Budweiser back through the gate to maybe a friend. So he walked in, got into the car, and I said, hello. And I said, hey, you've been drinking alcohol? He said, yeah. He said, and he was quite open about it. He said, I've had about 4 or 5 bottles of bad. So I said, you're not going to be driving the car today. He said, oh, why not? That's because you're over the driving limit, obviously. He said, no, my dad said you're okay with 4 pints. Well, he actually got out the car and his dad came out with him. And it was a bit of an awkward moment because his dad was actually arguing with me. Well, not arguing with me, but we got into a bit of a discussion about alcohol limits. And he said, I've always been all right with 4 pints to drive. And I said, you're clearly over the limit. He said, a load of old rubbish. So he said, can't my boy have his driving lesson today? So I said, no, and I've got to charge him as well. And it went on for a good 15 minutes, this conversation. But I got me money in the end. And the following week, he got in and he did apologise. But it was quite an awkward moment when I had that conversation with his dad. Yeah. Because his dad was probably old school, thinking, you know, I'm okay with 4 pints. So that's what he boiled down to.
Yeah. Shock. What a shock, Gary. And it is that old school thing, that old school thinking where so there's awkward in 2 camps there. The son and the interesting. We've still got a few minutes before we start talking about the solutions. Nice. Well, thank you, Gary. So it's Terry, then Teresa, then Phil, please.
I've just got a solution for Gary if it happens again. Like, send him back inside to have some more beer, because 4 pints is a limit. It's okay to drive the limit. He wasn't at the limit yet. That's why he didn't, drive. Back inside, up to 4 limits, then do the lesson.
Up to 4 pints. But you'd have to measure it because the bottles are...
Bottles different, yeah. I was going to talk about solutions, Fiona, so I'll leave that to when you want to start that.
Oh, well, you can do solutions.
No, it's okay.
Well, it's not my thing. I'm just trying to eke it out a bit. Right, Teresa, go. I might say go and then Phil.
Sort of a solution that came from an awkward. Similar sort of situation. Lad I was supposed to be teaching quite early in the day messaged me and said, I don't think I should do my lesson because I've been out with my mates last night. Can we? And I said, well, you're lucky, I've got space later in the day. Do you want to try and put it back? And he said, yeah, that's fine. So in the time I had during his original lesson, I went to Halfords, and I don't know whether, I mean, you probably are aware, but in France, you legally have to carry breath test kits, like little doobies. So I bought a box, and actually they're quite cheap. I didn't know that, but I took it with me to his house. And when I picked him up, I said, oh, so you had a good night then? I said, I'm really impressed that you sort of messaged and tried to cancel your lesson, even though you'd have been charged, obviously, because, you knew it was happening. I said, so how many did you have? And we started basically this conversation about drinking and driving. And obviously he already had a good mindset towards it. And I said, well, just out of an experiment, I said, I've not done this before, and you can well within your rights to say no. I said, do you fancy trying a breath test kit? I said, because you can buy these in Halfords, and in France you've got to have them, blah blah blah. And he said, oh yeah, okay then. So we did this breath test kit together, and obviously it came up negative. He was fine, and then we carried on with the lesson. And actually it was a really good learning tool for both of us, because we obviously had a reasonable rapport anyway, so I didn't feel awkward about that. But I picked and choose to, I wouldn't turn around to anybody and say, oh, do a breath test kit, but it might be something I turn around and say, well, I think you're over the limit. I've got this. If you're prepared to take it, then we can do a breath test kit. If you're insistent you're fine, then we'll do this. And then they've got a choice to make then, whether they do or don't. and then I've got the ultimate sort of decision as to whether they get in the car or not. But yeah, it was a really good learning experience for both of us, and hopefully he's taken that away with him. And yeah, not the breath test kit, I mean, like the education.
Absolutely. I like the bit where you give him the opportunity for later in the day. That's really good. Like that. Phil, and then we'll go back to Terry.
Okay. I've got a couple actually. One of them's quite amusing and the other one's quite sad. So which one would you like? Or
Go for bad news first and then end
bad
up
news first. Okay, so I picked a lad up for a lesson one day and he got in the car. It was early-ish in the morning. He got in the car and he wasn't seeming his usual self. And I just said to him, "You all right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm okay." He said, "My dad died yesterday afternoon." And I thought, the hell do you say to that? You know, this lad has come out to do his lesson because he felt he should, because he was obligated to me. But his dad had died the day before. That was quite an awkward little moment. And the other one, I was teaching a young lady. We were driving down the road. It was summertime. Windows were open. She had a relatively short skirt on, not a mini skirt, and just relatively short. And I heard this sort of click, and I sort of looked over and I saw this bee had hit the wing mirror, and it came and it landed right between her legs. So I said, "Just pull over on the left a minute," and just briefly. So she did. I said, "Look, there's a bee just landed right between your legs." And she was, "Oh, get it out, get it out, get it out." And I thought, well, there's another awkward situation.
We all want to know. We all want to know.
I didn't know.
That's when a good use of cloth comes in.
Yeah, she got out the door carefully and yeah, flicked the bee off the seat.
She got out the door looking a bit like Linda, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's really that's heartbreaking, Phil. I have had similar where we've had discussions about that.
I just offered him the chance to carry on. I said, "You sure you want to carry on?" He said, "Oh yes, please." We did about half an hour, 40 minutes. I said, "Anytime you feel like stopping, just say." And we'll
probably still in shock.
Yeah.
So it's probably a really good distraction until the overwhelm of that happened.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm glad we went for the B.
Second, yeah.
Yeah. I have, because all of these things make me remember my own, but we'll go for Terry because that was ages ago. Terry, he's forgotten now, hasn't he?
What have I forgotten?
I can't remember.
I just find it interesting when we have these situations in the car, like BO or bad breath or whatever, something not so major as alcohol or bees between your legs. Why do some of us say nothing, and why are some of us completely comfortable with saying, "You stink of BO, put some deodorant on next time"? I'm not a saying it kind of person. I'll just open a window.
Who's a saying it kind of person? Like, oh, really? Teresa's a middling.
Teresa would have been my banker there for who's a saying.
It depends on the situation. Like the BO thing, I would probably open a window. I had one lad who smelt of what I thought smelling of marijuana, and I was just like, wasn't sure whether it was just a 17-year-old stink. I couldn't put my finger on it, whether it was or not. So at that point, I was trying to sort of weigh it all up, and I wasn't in a position where I could actually bring the conversation up. So I just opened the window and then sort of had a word with my other half, who's a police officer, when I got home, and said, like, what do I do? You know, I can't outright accuse him of smoking, but I don't feel at this point I'm in a position where I can bring the subject up. So, yeah, so Terry, you're right. Normally, I'd be the one that would say something, but it depends on the person I'm with, my level of rapport and the level of sensitivity. But generally, I'd say something.
But why? Why some of us don't say anything? Why do some of us, and that's different personalities and stuff, but I don't say anything because I don't want to make them feel awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's
Or
a
bad.
long hour. Ask Linda, 10 minutes can be an agony. Agony. Yeah, it is that feeling of really awkward. Terry, I've interrupted. Did you have more?
Not really. I just that's why I don't say anything, but I understand why others do.
Yeah, I've got you in a second, Danny. What I'm reminded of is ways around it. You know, with the BO kind of thing, because I know a lot of people have an issue with that, where it's so hard because what we're tempted to say is, you really smell. Do you see? And we make it about the person, which is where it gets even worse. Whereas you could say something similar to, I don't suppose you could change your clothes just before you get in the car next time. Because the clothes really, you've got a very strong, you know, you've got a very strong man scent or something. You could or a woman scent.
Fiona, please don't say man scent ever again.
I'm going to send it in a card next time it's your birthday, which is every day. Yeah, Teresa.
I was going to say I might put it into a different scenario as well initially. If it's somebody I haven't actually been in contact with a lot and I haven't built that rapport, it might be that I would say, oh, does it smell in here? Because I had some, you know, I had my son's been in here or something, you know, and sort of put it into a different scenario so that it's not about them, but it might get them thinking. You know, so I apologize for the air freshener, but I've had my, you know, my other half, I picked up the other half off a marathon the other day and he stank. So, you know, so make a bit of a light joke about it, about the fact that there might be an aroma, and then hopefully they'll pick it up. But, you know, then if it's, I need to be less subtle. Depends on the situation, like I said.
Yeah, it is difficult. Well, awkward. It is really awkward. Interesting that massive ship has got hiccups, Phil. I didn't know
Beauty, innit?
it has hiccups.
It is actually on the sea. It's just the way the sea changes colour and then blends in with the sky.
Yeah. No, it's just wonderful because it just looks like the ship's got hiccups. Yes, Terry, are you coming back too?
Yeah, blood. I'd be really interested actually, because I'm not a kind of say it kind of person, so I don't want them to feel awkward. And I'm just wondering if anyone's got any good tips about how you can approach.
Well, I gave you one.
Apart from that,
who else has got something?
anything that someone does.
Lovely Linda would be really good at that, actually. She's come to me and said awkward things about what I'm doing in the past. Did you know? Yeah, Danny, I'll come to you in a sec. Sorry, I forgot. Oh, Linda fainted. Linda! Were you going to say something? Yeah, good.
I was going to say, I'm just like Terry. I don't say anything. I
thought you
just,
had a beard for something, and you said just like me. Oh.
no, I just wouldn't say anything. I just don't like that awkwardness. I would just sit there and probably faint rather than say something.
My
Pass out.
thing. Yeah.
Pass out.
Oh, Linda. Yeah, I understand that. I'm gonna, because I think I forgot Danny earlier. Sorry, Danny. Go.
Yeah, I come up with an idea actually. I've never used it, but most of us have a shower in the morning. It livens you up, doesn't it? Maybe you could mention it, just say to them, well, before your driving lesson, I always find like have a wash, have a shower, and it wakes me up and I'm alive and kicking and ready for my lesson or for my day. So maybe they might think, oh yeah, I might try that, but it could go the wrong way, couldn't it? Because they might think, do you think I'm a smelly git? Don't know. So it's a very tricky one, isn't it, to give your opinion on that? But I would open the window myself.
Yeah.
And also, another awkward one, sitting in the middle of Carlisle High Street, and the student parked at the traffic lights, very busy, decides to look at his phone. So I looked amazed and I said, excuse me, do you know that's illegal what you're doing right this moment? Is it? I said, can you just put your phone down? And I said, in a little while, we'll pull up and have a chat about that. So that was another awkward one I thought I'd throw in.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Couldn't
Innocent.
believe that he actually had his phone out.
Well, yeah, someone at Colchester Test Centre answered the phone. I can't talk now, I'm on my driving test. The examiner went, what, you were? Got you, Sammy. Got you, Sammy, but I've got Terry and Steph first. Sorry, but they did their wavy things first. What was the first thing you said about this? Yeah, something else. Something else I was going to say. The hinting at the shower thing. Oh, I've forgotten. Sorry. Terry, and then Steph, then Sammy, please.
3 things. Firstly, Fiona, you're going to say something like, do you know Boots sell deodorant?
No.
Okay. Second thing, Danny, are you sitting in my mum's house because you got a sheet over the sofa? Cool. My mum does that. No, can't sit on the sofa without a sheet on it. And third thing.
That's because she forgot to leave the plastic on. Have you been to a house with the plastic on?
Yeah. Every Cypriot house has got plastic sheeting on the sofas for 20 years. And then they throw it away because it's got old. Anyway, that could be the next one. Why don't you put plastic sheeting on your sofa?
Teresa's got it on her car seat.
Third one. What's the third one? Gemma came out a really good point on Facebook. She says, I feel it's a negative, so would never pull anyone down, no matter if it was burning my nostrils. You don't know what's going on in people's lives or what mental health is like. And that's a really good point, I think.
Yeah.
That was all I'm done.
Good. I've got a friend who can have a shower within half an hour. His feet stink as bad as before. Half an hour. Never known anything like it. That is face meltingly strong in half an hour. Thank you, Terry. Good 3 points. Neil's still writing them down. Quick, talk very fast, Steph. So Neil can't keep up.
Just a couple of things. Just in reply to BO, if you can't stand the smell, the trick is to put a little bit of Vicks between your lip and nose. You won't smell the BO, so you don't have to mention it if you don't want to be personal. Secondly, I find it really weird that most of these awkward situations seem to involve bodily functions rather than anything driving related. So I'd like to bring in an awkward driving related thing. I think it was my second lesson I was giving when I was qualified on a pink in 2019. And the pupil had already had driving lessons. So we were doing a maneuver with somebody else. And she turned to me and she said, I'm confused. I don't know which way to turn the wheel to get it to go. And of course, being to go left or to go right when we were reversing and being very new to the job, I would just do it automatically without having to think, but actually having to tell or train or coach somebody in it, I didn't know either. And the pair of us got in a right fluster and I felt really, really awkward about the whole situation because she's paying me and I didn't know the answer or how to do it and I just remember every time she got in the car, I always felt awkward, and there was always something that she'd ask me or that would happen because of this one awkward situation. Our whole driving career then together seemed to always be awkward.
It's a really good point, actually. Really good point. I like that. For some of us, it's just so long ago that we don't remember, Steph.
Probably, yeah.
Terry was about 16 when he learned to be a driving instructor. Well, maybe a bit more than 16. 17 and a half. No, it's a really good point, Steph. I know exactly what you mean, though. I can't remember specifics, but I do remember exactly what you mean. Sammy and then Teresa. Thank you, Steph.
Well, Terry, I was going to pick on Gemma's comment because, in all serious,
Sorry.
in all seriousness, regarding mental health, we do have to be very careful when mentioning things like bodily fluids and whatnot. And it also affects, and something we haven't touched upon yet, it affects our rapport with the client, which can take such a long time to build and a lot of effort, but can take a moment to break it, can't it? So whilst it's not very nice to have someone smelly in your car, it's actually none of our business how someone else lives. And, they might have a medical condition, for instance. And I did have a client who was constantly sweat, and she knew she sweated. And, as soon as she got coming up to anything that was a roundabout, a crossing, another car appeared, you could see her, she would start to glisten, and she knew it. And so we had this nice equal conversation with our good rapport that we'd built, and was able to have that conversation where she would then be evaluating herself, what was causing the sweating, how she could cope with that. Because if she's doing that on a regular basis, how would she be managing her environment so that, it's not too sticky on the steering wheel and slippery, not too sticky on the seat? And then she said, I think a really good idea would be is if I could bring a towel, because then I could put that on the seat and it would absorb all of the moisture from my body. And so she came out with that, not me. And I was able to have that conversation because of rapport. And I think that is so important. If you're going to have a conversation about anything like that, do it gently with rapport.
There you go.
Get it from them. That's all I had to say about that.
And I think that's quite good. What I like is the opportunity for scaling there. On a scale of gentle glow. Gentle glow to drippy sopping wet.
Yeah. But some people do have excessive sweating.
Yeah.
And, they can't help it. It's not that they're making it happen. So, yeah, just be nice and gentle with them. That's all you need to do, isn't it?
But this comes, because I'm going to bring my bit in, because this is the thing I thought about. And I think it has a bearing on what you were talking about, Terry. In normal kind of coaching realms, and I know not everybody wants to go down the coaching route, but there's a really good principle in normal kind of coaching, which is the contracting part. And I think it's something that we need to do. And it's something that when you think about it, even old school, they said, give people your terms and conditions, which is different to contracting. Terms and conditions is, I'm the boss and you are going to do these are my terms and conditions. Contracting is something very much more equal, as you were talking about, Sammy. But if you actually make a contract with somebody and you say to them right at the beginning, and you can refer back to it, if you say in those initial stages of, we're going to sit in the car together and train, now there may be things that come up that are really awkward. Do I have your permission to discuss that openly with you, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us feel? Then you've got an opportunity to deal with anything that comes your way, because you can just refer back and say, do you remember that thing? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm going red. Because I am probably worse than you, Terry, but I have had conversations with people, and I think you do have to do it. You have to bring things up. But contracting is very different to, I'm going to tell you my terms and conditions, which is something I believe we should be doing. Right, I'm not sure who was first, Neil or, but Neil, you've got to write that down, contracting.
Yeah, I've done that.
Teresa.
Yeah, that's really useful, Fiona, because I've got terms and conditions. I still get them to sign them and it's just basically more about like if you cancel, or cancellation policies, and if the test gets brought forward and stuff like that. It's not so much about working conditions, which is quite interesting. I like that, and I might have to rewrite mine. It's based on the service I intend to give to you and what I expect in return. I think that's a really important thing. But going back to whether we should say something or shouldn't, I think we've touched on sort of the bodily fluids thing, but we've also touched on legalities. So the mobile phone, the drinking, the potential drug use and things like that. And I think there's a line between what we should and shouldn't bring up, or how we would bring something up. And if it was down to a legal thing, there would be no hesitation, but I'd still be quite careful about it, because like I said, you can't be outright accusing necessarily. But equally, like Sammy said, and I'd mentioned before, my approach to whether I discuss, sorry about that, my approach would be based on the rapport I have with that client, with that learner, or whoever I've got in my car with me. At the end of the day, like you said, the BO thing, the mental health thing, you don't know what you're playing with, but over a period of sort of 4 to 6 months, maybe even longer in some places, you're going to find out an awful lot about that person. So we have shorter relationships than we have with our learners sometimes. And I think by the time you get to, certain situations, you might find that that rapport's there and you can be a lot more open. And I think if you haven't got that, then you are going to be with them for even longer, because the learning process is going to take longer, because rapport helps learning, I think. So
Absolutely. And that's why, my brain really is thinking about contracting in that different way for me when I go into any future training. It's how you do it. It's how it's done. Neil, I know. I should have brought you into it a long time ago. Sorry.
So we've been stories and that. What I want to know is, how does everybody feel, and how does the other person feel on the next time you see them, after you've told them, you stink or whatever? How do you get over that next session? Because it all comes down to emotions, doesn't it? And do you feel uncomfortable, or is that awkward, or do you know what I mean?
Anyone? Teresa's going first by the looks of it.
When I was a teacher, if you bawled somebody out in the classroom, which does happen, or you sent them out of your class, you're a bit sharp with them. One of the things I seemed to surprise the others with was my ability to just completely forget it. Like, the line was drawn, that's it. So when they came back in that classroom, it was like, you're starting from scratch. That's the end of it. There's no elephant in the room. There's no grudge. It's back to work. I know they're kids, it's slightly different, but when you've got that person next to you and you've had to bring up a situation, I think, again, if the rapport's good, then you can draw a line under it, and that's the end of it. So that lad that I said was sort of snotting all over my car, I was quite sharp with him, because what the behaviour he was displaying was not nice. It was disgusting. And I was quite sharp with him, and I said, right, okay, are you sorted now? Okay, let's get going. But it was sort of like, that was it. There was the line drawn, and there didn't appear to be any change in our professional relationship or our rapport at that point. It was a case of, yeah, okay, I've been told off here, but yeah, actually it was quite reasonable. and then the fact that I was completely normal and completely sort of, back to the focus, it sort of relaxed the situation again. I can imagine in some instances it might not, but I've had another situation where it actually helped to relax us completely, to the point where we were able to have more successful lessons, because the awkwardness between us was damaging the learning. But that's another story I'll come back to if anybody wants to hear it.
Well, I was going to say, that's one of those subtle awkwards that I remember It's when I'm uncomfortable, or when I know my body language is different because I'm becoming frustrated. And I know that person's picked up on it, but they think I'm cross with them. And it could be I'm cross because I haven't managed the situation in the way that I know I should have or could have. So sometimes, and then I just say it, and then there's the honesty from, I know you probably sensing something right now, and yes, I am, but it's nothing. I'll explain it when we stop. Please don't think this is anything to do with you. But I think there's that honesty, and honesty is the key. I think I am so uncomfortable saying this to you, but can we raise the subject of strong body odor? And then see what they say. And then you find out if they've got their stinky problems and, you know, whatever's going on. But I think it's that honesty that is going to make a difference. But I think it's the honesty with rapport. And I think you can get really far by saying to somebody, I don't know how I'm reacting to this. I feel something. Can we have a chat about, I feel awkward somehow. Can we talk about that? I'll tell you what the thing is. When we're coming up to roundabouts, I'm really uncomfortable and I don't know why. And then you put the ball in their foot, on their shoe, anyway, whatever that thing is. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Say yes.
Yeah.
Bail me out. Steph.
I got
Gary does. And I think honesty is part of rapport. And I think people believe that we are supposed to be, especially if you've got the word coach anywhere near you in terms of what you want to do in terms of driver training, sorry. It means that we're supposed to be touchy-feely, coachy, how do you feel? And I think actually I'm uncomfortable, and the honesty part and that equal part is I'm really uncomfortable and we need to talk about this because I can't be normal. I can't relate to you in my normal way because this is thing and it's in the way. And I think it's that part of this contracting thing that I am exploring because we do these things. So even when because I don't know where this is going to go, but I do think about these why don't yous before we come out and do them. And I think, well, why is it important? Why is any of it important? And it is. It is. Who can I dump on? Terry, talk.
Blah, blah,
Is
blah, blah.
there anything on Facebook? Obviously not, because you usually bring it up. Steph, go for something.
Yeah, just talking about this honesty and these awkward conversations. Again, I think it was my first year I was driving or teaching. I picked up this pupil, and I mentioned the size now because it's part of the story. He was very, very, very large, and he gave me the story on the phone before I met him. He'd been through 3 instructors, spent about £3,000 on driving, and, you know, still wasn't test ready, blah, blah, blah. So I get to him, we get in the car, and he'd paid for 10 lessons, and I nearly gave up on him on this first lesson. But by the 10th lesson, I realized it was his size that he couldn't do the clutch. He just couldn't do the clutch because he couldn't bend his foot or his ankle or move his leg enough to be able to do the clutch. So we either constantly stalled or whatever, he just could not do the clutch. So I sat and had a conversation with him by about lesson 8, and I said, I think, you know, looking at your performance, what do you think's holding you back? And he himself said was doing the clutch. And I said, have you thought of automatic? And he said, my wife won't let me because I've got to drive the trailer when I passed my test, and we've only got a manual car. And I thought, well, you can't even drive a manual, let alone pull a trailer. So I said, you know, well, let's have another lesson. We had another lesson, and you could see he was never going to get it. Listening to his horror stories, I don't think the other instructors ever were honest with him. I think they just dumped him and ran. So I said to him, shall we talk to your wife together? And he said, yes, I would love that. And I sat down and I had a conversation with her and I explained everything. And I think she was grateful because I said to her, look, I can sit here for the next 2 years and take your money and try and teach your husband to drive. But I said, it's not going to happen. I said, I think automatic's the only way. I saw him in the car park, he was shopping. I said, what happened? He said, I'm learning to drive an automatic. So I think sometimes what I'm trying to say is honesty is only the policy that you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. Keith. Thank you, Steph.
Yeah, there's something myself and also maybe a few other people do, and that's the honest truth. And the 10 subjects that we run through, drink, drive, drugs, and things like that, that might be a solution in a way that would give them an idea before they actually start their driving kind of thing. We could put those over. It only takes a couple of minutes each lesson. And we could probably put an extra one in, couldn't we, Neil, about smells, and yeah, as an extra one towards it. But they're very interesting, they're very, very good, and they, as I say, it just gives them more of an idea about drink drive. There's a couple of videos as well with drink and drive and using the phone and things like that, so it's quite interesting.
I think those kind of conversations are something we really ought to be thinking about during our sessions, our private training. So. There was something else I was going to bring up. Thank you, Keith. There was something else. I keep remembering it and then forgetting it again when people talk, which is because I get so focused on what they're saying. No, it's gone. It's completely gone. Oh, Ian, are you going to tell us your one or not? Or do you want me to relay it? I think you should do it.
It's not really awkward. Well, it was awkward, but
it was. It was awkward, but it's awkward. But the outcome's really very dangerous, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So basically, it was just a lesson. New student. I think it was second lesson. She got out of the car at the end, and there was a little wet patch on the seat that I spotted. My first reaction was one of like disgust, you know, and I didn't say nothing at that moment. I just basically, I did have a towel in the back, which, you know, I get sweaty hands anyway for me, so I've always got my own towel. Put that on the chair, drove home, started washing it down, washed me down, and like I say, got to the next lesson, what Neil was saying, you know, I was thinking, all I kept in my mind the whole week was, how am I going to approach this? Do I say something, do I not? I decided to bring it up. I just said, look, like you said, I feel awkward saying this, but last week, you know, did you have an accident? And she said, yeah. It just, the conversation eventually led to her crying, opening up that she's got an illness that she's trying to hide. Her family are ashamed that she's got it. And it's multiple sclerosis. It was that in the end, yeah. Which led up to her basically handing her license back because the DVSA wanted a lot more tests done. But they're safe. It was the safest. I did say to her, you know, it's not the end of the world. They're not saying you can't, but you've got to be properly tested and go through sequence, I'd imagine. So yeah, it was hard. It was awkward, hard. It was a lot. It was emotional. Yeah.
In doing the honesty thing, how did it feel afterwards, though?
Oh, brilliant. Because she even opened up and she even messaged me to say thank you. And, you know, I feel better because now, you know, it was also because of the religion, her religion as well. I think it just brought, like, the family were quite established in the area. The father was a doctor. The father was an actual doctor as well. So he knew the risks, you know.
Yeah. There's all sorts of denial, so we can't judge. As a father or as a parent, I can't imagine, because the prognosis of MS is quite, you know, it's awkward for them to come to terms with. So it's a form of grief that they were going through. Could have been the denial phase, in my opinion. What do I know? But really, I'm really glad you said that, Ian, that bit, because it brought me back to something Teresa was saying. And I don't know if this makes any sense to anyone else, but maths for me is just completely no. If there's anyone else around, I cannot do it, because at school, one of my teachers, I remember his name, he said, if you have any questions, just ask. Always ask, I'll answer. And he was quite pleasant about it. So I asked a question once, and he'd explained it twice. I believe it might have been long division. I still don't know. When do you bring down that blooming one? Anyway, I can't believe you don't get it. I've explained it twice. Are you stupid or something? And that's it. So anytime now, when anyone says, well, what's 2 18s? What's 2 18s? What's 2 18s? What's 2 18s? You're too stupid. You don't get this. What's 2 18s? 18. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I never have been able to do maths when there's anyone else around. It's really bizarre. But I think we, as people who are educators, can make a very big lasting impression on a young brain. So if anyone has that, and you don't even need to say something, that was quite extreme, and I realized that. But, you know, anyone who goes, if I was driving, I'm a very sensitive person. Anyone tuts near me, you know, and it's all, I've done something wrong. And I wonder how much of an impact we can have, which makes them feel awkward, that they can never tell us about, that might make a difference to them and their whole driving career. So I think we do need to manage awkward situations. I really do. I think it's hard. Oh, it's past, everybody. It's past. Yeah, Ian. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Yeah. Ian's got to dash off, but I'm just wondering. And so there, Danny's kitchen's arrived. No, it seems like I know everybody.
Amazing. Up. Good timing.
Brilliant. We're looking forward to it on Facebook. See you, Danny. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Neil, can we have our wonderful kind of catch-up roundup?
Yeah, it's a bit awkward though. Yeah, so we've shared some stories, some funny stories, probably funny now, but probably weren't at the time, probably very distressing for some at the time, i.e. Linda. And it all come down to bodily fluids mainly. We got talking about different things, and then people's reactions, and it's an old school mentality. Do we give people opportunities for change? Do we say something or don't we say something? Do we do subtle actions that are going to make people feel uncomfortable as well? So Terry opening the window and not saying anything could make somebody feel really uncomfortable, or putting somebody down with it, like the maths that you were talking about, Fiona. Steph come up with a good idea for stopping that smell as well as the window, using the Vaseline, which I never thought of before, never really thought that would happen.
Vicks, not Vaseline, Vicks.
Okay, yeah, there we go. I was corrected. That was an awkward situation. So we talked a bit about mental health and the responsibilities. And I think we've come to the conclusion that it's all about honesty, the rapport that we've got, and the conversations that we have with the people at the time. And that's it.
And there's a get out that I'm going to be employing more, which is my contracting. And I think that's I think that's a way forward for a lot of us to think about. I'd love to know in future if anyone comes up with anything that they've found benefits. Let me know, because this is my first time of thinking about it too. Contracting.
Neil, Was
I like-
Vaseline a Freudian slip?
Yeah. Yeah.
Freudian make Vaseline. Yeah, anyone who's been in nursing or coroners, anything, anyone police, everyone knows that this lifesaver. You can put it on your mask now. Oh, Sammy. Sammy.
Is she training to be a vet?
No, I think that's that. The James
Yeah.
Herrick style. Right.
I won't tell you the stories. They're a bit awkward.
Please don't. Yeah, a little bit awkward. Well, this has been awkward. I've quite enjoyed it actually. No matter how awkward it's been. I'm even going red thinking about being awkward. How weird's that? But that's how yeah, I'm quite sensitive, obviously. I'm going to ask you all to wave goodbye to the folks on Facebook. So thank you very much on Facebook. We do have another one. It's on the 8th of April, 2 o'clock. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 8th of April. It's also about, what is it about, Terry? Do you remember?
No, because we decided about an hour and a half ago and I've forgotten.
Yeah, I thought you might.
It is let mistakes happen. Why don't you let mistakes happen?
Are we saying anything or leaving it till?
No, you say it, Terry.
But you're hierarchically in charge, Fiona.
It's the last one before the end of lockdown. And maybe the
And?
last one. Maybe.
So the next one, 8th of March, 8th of April even, is the last one.
Possibly.
We're stopping at number 42.
We're stopping at number 42. And if you're a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide, you'll know that's the life, the universe and everything. So it's the final number anyway.
You're still live on Facebook, by the way, just to let you know.
Yes. Got to tell people on Facebook. Still live on Facebook, Life, the Universe and Everything, number 42. Okay, is everyone all right? Wave goodbye, folks. See you on the 8th, 2 o'clock. Let mistakes happen. Maybe I'll get it all wrong on the day.
You never get it wrong, Fiona.